Good evening and welcome to the Velovicy of Now with me, your host Thomas Sheridan. It's the 3rd of February 2016 and my website is thomassheridanarts.com, and you're listening to the show pre-recorded on Thomas Sheridan Arts on YouTube. I wasn't going to do a show tonight, but because I didn't have any topics really that I want to talk about. I like to keep the show fresh and interesting. I don't like to just, prattle on and babble on about anything. But this is becoming a kind of a, shall we say, a pep talk or an emergency broadcast in a sense. An emergency broadcast to the psyche of so many people right now. I won't have time to edit the mistakes out of this program, so if there's any noises like cats or anything in the background, I see Philo starting already. And I drop things. Please forgive me because I won't have time to edit it. So many people in the last few weeks, but you could probably say it's the last couple of months, because all of these amazing people who've decided to depart the planet, the ones we needed on the planet, but maybe they're fighting from the other side. We've lost so many, but I don't think it's to do with that. There's just things just don't seem right at the moment. I'll talk about my own experiences. I haven't been feeling as as down or rattled as other people, but I do have the intuition of a tiger, and I am aware when it's happening to people around me, that people are out of sorts. I was nearly hit by a car the other day, a truck actually, filling the car full of petrol. The guy from a delivery truck at the garage had parked the car during the wind, and he had left the handbrake off, and it was like that scene in the movie The Omen where David Warner gets his head chopped off, and the guy said he swore he put the handbrake on, but apparently the handbrake went off by itself, and the big huge delivery truck rolled towards me, and luckily I was in the car by the time it made impact. If I had been outside, I probably would have lost my legs if it had hit me or someone else. And it was also kind of fortuitous because the car stopped it from rolling out into the middle of the street and killing people. And the guy was very apologetic, and I'm not the kind of person that starts fights unless in traffic problems, unless they're assholes. But he was very apologetic. He looked very upset. There wasn't that much damage to the car. The molding was broken off and a dent that's easily fixed, and that'll be no problem. And so it was that started it. But also in the last few days I've been having some very, very weird dreams, very strange dreams, and people have very intense, including a very, very intense dream of a British flight crashing, a British airliner crashing. That woke me up very upset in the middle of the night. I saw it go down on a housing estate. It was definitely, I don't know, it was a British Airways flight. I don't know what it was, but it was a UK flight. And the other dreams have been all these in technicolor, incredible. Two people I know that, you see, one of the great gifts for me studying psychopathy in the last decade has been my compassion for truly mentally unwell people has increased enormously. I have great empathy and compassion for people who have mental problems now, and because they're so different than psychopaths, they're truly unwell. Now, two people I know that have been fine, and both of them are former psychiatric patients who had been ostensibly cured or fixed or very healthy for the last year or so, well, one of them 2 years and one of them a year, have started calling me up acting all crazy again. They're almost like how they were when they were very unwell a few years ago. And this upset and shocked me because I really thought these people were better. And that greatly disturbed me because it was happening at the same time. People all over my Facebook page were posting about they just don't feel right. They're waking up at 3 a.m. They're having all kinds of anxiety problems. People are bastards on the roads. People are bastards on the commuting on the train. It's horrible in the office. Sleep is all weird. So something is definitely going on. Now, what it is, I don't know. It could be some kind of reset of the psyche, of consciousness, through the collective unconscious. Now, you know me, I'm not Mr. Fear Porn. I'm not a doom-laden type. But when something on this scale takes place, I pay attention. It's important. It's very important. Because without calling them control specimens, people who have psychiatric or mental disorders are very, very good barometers when things are going wrong. I'm sure they're not there's anything wrong with them. They're actually there may even be a kind of a shamanic quality to it, in that their illness is helping the rest of us to identify something coming down the line. They're almost like the human version of, when you had the tsunami in Indonesia and India, all the animals ran and all the birds all vanished, and people who were taking elephant tours, the elephants all ran into the hills. Same thing. We have human versions of those people as well, and they're generally people that are frowned upon in society as being unwell, but they're also people who have learning disabilities and other kind of issues. We don't treat them like cuckoo clocks or anything like that. We pay attention because they're often tuned in on a different wavelength, shall we say, for various reasons, and they can be useful in determining something coming. Now, it was just that on its own, I would say, okay, it's just that on its own. But something very strange is happening, particularly in Ireland right now, Scotland, the north of England, and it seems to be spreading into the south of England. Some truly bizarre skies have been photographed. I can remember seeing these in the early 80s in Dublin, right before Dublin had an earthquake, as which I've spoken about, a very powerful earthquake, about 1981, I think it was, 81 or 82, one Saturday morning it happened, I think. But the skies that I'd seen then were nothing like the ones I'm seeing now. I only saw it, shall we say, one weird rainbow cloud in the sky. Now people are sending in incredible photographs because everyone has camera phones now of these skies everywhere. Particularly, when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere in Scotland, Ireland, the north of England especially. This also, in a very weird way, synchronistic way, ties in with my 99 moon cycle theory, because the last time we were made aware of these strange earthquake lights, as they're called, was in the 2009 massive earthquake that took place in Chile. An earthquake that was so powerful it actually tilted the earth a little bit on its axis. One of the reasons I have never been sold on the anthropomorphic or whatever it's called, the Al Gore global warming thing, is because it makes climate change predictions almost exclusively on, shall we say, terrestrial factors on the Earth, and pays almost no attention to what's happening in space. And I think that's the most important part of all. It's been well known for a long time that large-scale ejections of material from the sun compresses the Earth's atmosphere and leads to a kind of a sense of intensity. And this is called space weather. It also has been known to, we've also had some very, very good auroras lately. Remember that? I think there's something coming from space, possibly from the sun, that's impacting on the atmosphere and affecting the geomagnetic effect of the Earth. Now, the geomagnetic effect of the Earth on human beings and animals, but particularly human beings because of our highly developed cognition, is far more profound than most people realize. I have written about in my books experiments that were done with the likes of DARPA, where they put geomagnetic fields around people, around subjects, test subjects' heads, and found that they could switch off their empathy. They would do things like, they would say things like, if your girlfriend was running across a bridge that was about to fall, what would you do? And all the young men would answer, well, I'd run over and try and save her. When they put the magnets on the limbic regions and the amygdala part of the brain, these geomagnetic forces, they discovered that the first thing that the ones who said they would run over and save their girlfriend would say things like, I wouldn't do it, it'd be too dangerous, I'd just let her fall. They became proto-psychopaths through these experiments. This is very powerful stuff. Also, the geomagnetic aspects of the planet and its effect upon our cognition is so profound that you can even change your perception of reality by putting the magnets in a certain way, shape, or form. It's so a stable geomagnetic, correctly polarized Earth is so healthy, is so, I won't say healthy, is so important for human cognitive functioning that any changes in that will lead to what we're probably experiencing right now. There has never been a magnetic pole flip in recent human history, but it did happen once when humans were around, that there was a magnetic pole flip. That doesn't mean that the Earth turned upside down, as some of these idiotic conspiracy sites make out. That never happened. What happened was, well, they're the same people who are now saying the Earth is flat. What happened was there was a geomagnetic flip. In the late 1960s, there was some geomagnetic anomalies were discovered in the Clermont-Ferrand district of France. When the researchers were examining inactive or hardened lava flows, that they discovered that there was a sudden reversal of the Earth's magnetic field, which happened about 40,000 years ago, give or take 2,000 years. That was bang on when humans were on this Earth in our present developed position status. The sudden reversal of the Earth's geomagnetic field lasted for about 400 years, give or take 40 years. And it was roughly a 200-year transition between the flip in polarity on either side of the reversal. So for 800 years, and this is called a sudden and a short one, the Earth's magnetic field began to flip. It flipped in the middle 400 years and then flipped back to the position it's in now at the end of the 400-year reverse polarity. And this became known as the Lachamp event. And it has been validated all over the world by correlating identical findings with other inactive lava flows worldwide, particularly at the bottom of the Black Sea. What happened during this period, and how the humans, and I'm starting to wonder if this now ties in with the megaliths and the stories of giants walking the earth. And we can only imagine. We have a geomagnetic flip. It affects on, we know it deeply, profoundly affects human cognition. Did it switch on things? Did it switch off things? I don't know. However, not only did the field flip, but while this Lachamp event was going on, the Earth's magnetic field dropped by a staggering 75% during the full reversal and 5% during the intermittent periods. Now, there has been talk for a while that the Earth's magnetic North Pole and South Poles have been rapidly moving. They're now no longer over the North Pole, but they're well into Canada at the moment and parts of Russia. The pole is moved, magnetic pole has been on the move. Could we be experiencing a huge increase in this at the moment? I don't know. All I know is that this could be nothing. All I know is that these clouds they're unprecedented. Now I know people have more phones now, but they're just amazing. These colours appearing in the sky. Are we going to have an earthquake? Let's hope not. Are we going to have a magnetic pole? Well, there's nothing we can do about it. That's the most important thing of all. But something cosmic, and when I say cosmic, I don't necessarily mean from space as such. I mean all the bands of the electromagnetic spectrum is happening at the moment that's causing these disruptions in human cognition that's happening right now. I do believe that we're probably at the start of a magnetic pole flip. The data and evidence is out there if you look, and I do believe that this is playing a major part in what they call climate change. They will never admit it because there's no money to be made from it, and also they like the humans to believe. See, one of the things the witch doctors have done from day one is this notion that they can control the weather, and you can control the weather with actually magic. However, it's almost gives a supernatural effect. This is why Joseph Stalin, during the 5-year plans in the Soviet Union, placed great emphasis on repairing the weather of Russia, and they put a lot of work into geoengineering to try and change the weather in the Soviet Union. And this was to make them seem like gods. But the reality is, when you have something like a geomagnetic pole flip, there's nothing they can do about it. And such a pole flip would radically change us. Our cognition would suddenly be very different, both during the transitionary 200 years, if it repeats the Lachamp effect, as well as completely different during the 400 years. And are they worried? Are they worried? You do wonder if they're worried if they'll lose control of us, because our cognitions will be and our own cognition too will be nothing like their control systems that they've used on us. I know it's a way out there speculative idea, but I'm basing it on real science of something that happened in the past, coupled with the fact that we are experiencing a change, a rapid movement of, if you don't believe me, look up online, look at the science sites of the Earth's magnetic field polarity flipping or beginning to move. Now, with all these things, there could be good and bad things. Those of us experiencing great anxiety at the moment, or having these crazy dreams, we could be, without sounding too new agey, achieving some kind of improvement in cognition, awareness, creativity, and these are the labor pains of that birth. There are other ways which it might manifest at an archetypal pathological negative level. For example, the flat earth people. Are the flat earth people being affected by this compression or this flip in magnetism, and on a archetypal collective level, with not being able to properly understand the science, they're actually rationalizing that the earth is flat. When I say rationalizing, that's in quotation marks, by the way. That the earth is flat. at some level their instincts are figuring out there's something quite not right with the earth at the moment, because all flat earthers are so spectacularly uneducated and badly read that they will jump on something like a flat earth rather than sit back and study that it could be something like a Lachamp event and the Earth's magnetic pole is rapidly now moving. I don't know. But then if you were also a scientist, particularly in the Soviet Union, and you were aware of this, you could take full advantage, just like the witch doctors in the past took advantage and drummed up all this stuff. But something is happening right now. And we've had our sleep experiments. I was just saying the other night, there's nothing even comes close to the velocity of now in terms of what we've achieved, the way we've turned this show into almost like an open university of metascience. It's amazing what the dream life experiment, the sleep life experiments were just staggering, the results we achieved on them. I could probably win the great Randy's prize now, except that, as Rupert Sheldrake said, he's a complete fraud. He doesn't have the money, and no matter what you did, he would always say you didn't prove anything. This continuing experiment is probably something we need to pay careful attention to now. Also, the conspiracy-minded folks have to be very careful in their language. If the Earth's magnetic field was shifting, and they didn't want us to know this to stop widespread panic, naturally they would create something like HAARP is being. They'd want the conspiracy theorists saying HAARP is being switched on, or chemtrails are being released, or geomagnetic engineering is happening, because the witch doctors in charge would not want us believing that they have no absolute control over our destiny. See, this is something you must always be aware of. The greatest spell that it's the Wizard of Oz thing, the Great Oz, they have us believing that they can fix everything, control everything, and when they can't, they create these conspiracy theories to make people who wake up to the fact that they're not infallible and almighty will start spouting to make them look even more infallible and almighty. There was a film made back in the 60s, which I can't remember now, where a newspaper man or a student discovers political corruption with this politician, and there's one scene in the movie where the guy confronts the politician in a public setting and says, "You're corrupt, this is what you've done this, that and the other," and his bodyguards jump on the guy who has proof, pull him to the ground, and the politician immediately gaslights everybody by saying, "Oh, go easy, this young man is clearly unwell and unhealthy, and he needs professional medical help." Now, they do that on a grand scale with us. So be very careful of these. The first thing you jump to would be a HAARP monkey or a chemtrails monkey, because they want that if something like a magnetic flip is happening. See, I don't come here, I don't exist to validate your confirmation biases of truth. I'm not here for that reason. This is why I get more haters than anyone, because I'm not a performing monkey for a donate button. If I say things do or don't exist, that's an honest opinion from me. I'm not doing it to win ratings. Just like when I told you all that there are no such things as crisis actors, that these false flags are real and people actually died, large numbers of dumbass truthers attacked me, as if I had done some great crime. And now it's come out that the IRA, when infiltrated by MI5 and civilian bombings, were indeed a kind of a false flag. But guess what? People really died. The logic, or should I, and again, quotes, logic of the truthers is that The psychopaths at the top are evil enough to start wars, but they're not evil enough to kill people in false flags. They have this bizarre belief that crisis actors are a greater crime than innocent people being blown to bits in false flag terrorist attacks and shootings. Governments murder without impunity. And those of you who scream, crisis actor, crisis actor, crisis actor, and keep putting that picture of that girl with the phone out there, and the 4 different women with the phone, and go, crisis actor, are playing into these bastards. No, real people are murdered in these operations. Whether they're real terrorist attacks organised with patsies, which is what 90% of them are. There's the stuff that's coming out about the IRA now. So you have to be careful about screaming your truth or your conspiracy stuff, because just because it was on the X-Files or somewhere else doesn't mean it's true. They will hide the truth in a conspiracy more than they will hide the conspiracy in a truth. Remember that. Well, we have these people having strange intense dreams, everybody having a general horrible feeling of unease, these bizarre clouds in the sky, and that's the reason why I'm doing the show tonight, is to try and talk our way through it. Now, I don't have comments on my YouTube channel because there's something about YouTube that it attracts the most poisonous maggots on the earth. And as many of you know, I'm under attack constantly from a debt cult whose crackpot leader has ordered her demented minions to bury me, quote unquote. And so I can't, that's why I stick to comments on my Facebook page, which are perfectly entitled to join once you behave yourself. And this Facebook page is where we can discuss this further, because there I can actually block people, find out who they are, and so on. And have other people can suss them out as well. Facebook, if it's good for anything, it's actually that's why a lot of truthers hate it, because they have to use their real identities there in many cases, and they can't really hide as well as they can on, like, say, YouTube comments. Are we heading for an earthquake? I don't know, but I was thinking a lot about, especially when I came back from Malta, especially when I was at the temple of Gigantia, that temple was vastly much older than what they said it was, 5,000 years or so. And the main yardstick, and this is the yardstick I'll be using on all my megalithic trips from now on, is to gauge it against the nearby Roman aqueduct, which is over 2,000 years old and looks pristine compared to the temple of Gigantia, which is absolutely eroded away incredibly. And that says to me that it's far, 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 far older than 5,000 years. When this La Champ event happened 40,000 years ago, did it actually change human beings to the point where their cognition became so different that they could build these incredible structures all over the world because they approached them in a completely different way? Was the reduction in the Earth's magnetic field a factor in being able to move these enormous stones? Was a reduction, now remember, magnetic field and gravity is two different things, but remember, stones have a magnetic attraction as well. Was this drop, this enormous 75% drop in the Earth's magnetic field, a factor in how they even thought about it, where their cognition was changed, where reality was changed? You see, when I go to these places, like the Temple of Gigantia in Malta and everywhere, at Stonehenge, I stood underneath the trilithons in Stonehenge last summer, or last autumn, or whenever it was, and I looked up at a rock, a stone the size of a Volkswagen minibus 30 feet in the air over my head. And we're told that it took them 100 years to move the stones from Preseli in Wales down to Salisbury. in Wiltshire, where Stonehenge is, if you had a greatly reduced magnetic field of the earth by 75%, would it affect the clock speed in the brain? Where our cognition slows reality down. Where a day, instead of lasting 12 hours, it lasts 2 months. And the night lasts 2 months, as we perceive it within our cognition. Because I can tell you, lots of people, including myself, have seen time do very strange things in recent years. It seems to go very, very fast, but we seem to be getting much more done in that short space. I have never done, since the clock has been flying in recent years, I have never achieved more in terms of productivity and output than I have in that same period. I could look back at 10-year periods of my life where I achieved less than the last year. And lots of people of all different ages are reporting the same. The ones who are actually not, watching X Factor and things like that. Time is changing. Is this part of it? So if you had, like, during the Lachamp event, and these megaliths were, I think, the great ones, were like the ones in Mesoamerica, the ones in Peru and Angkor Wat and all the rest of them, and Göbekli, if they were built 40,000 years ago. And remember that the main criteria they have to measure the dates on these is two things. Carbon dating, which is extremely inaccurate, and the Bible. They'll never admit it, but that's what they base it on. That civilization had to have begun in Babylon. But if these things were made 40,000 years ago, were they built during this period of the Lachamp effect, where the Earth's magnetic field was 75% weaker, the polarity changed, and human cognition was very, very different. And as a result, the clock speed in their brains was very, very different. And they achieved things that were quite incredible, not because they were super people, but because their minds approached problem solving in a very different manner. And who knows, maybe they even built these megaliths in their own minds to try and repair the Earth's magnetic field and get it back to where it was before the Lachamp period. I mean, these are all wild things I'm throwing out there, but I'm a Fortean. I ask questions, I explore, and if it's not real, that's okay. If it is real, that's okay too. I'm not attached to I have no fixity to the outcome of the idea. It's an ongoing meta-science Fortean explanation. I knew things were not constant when I was studying electronics. I could build the same electronics circuit, 3 or 4 of them, and putting them through the oscilloscope, get wildly variable factors and outputs, because everything from even though the resistors had this, were maybe all 100 ohm resistors and all under 600 picofarad capacitors, that the variables of everything by how long the wire that was left on the resistor to how much solder was used and everything else determined the flow of electrons during the circuit. Only approximations of outputs could be achieved. Finite outputs could not be achieved until the advent of digital electronics, which is just a glorified switching system. But prior to that, analog electronics showed you that when you'd have an output of a circuit, it would either be especially in terms of current, and think if you were down to the milliamps and microamps, it had very wide plus and minus factors, variables of the outputs. So very early on in my scientific career, which lasted a very short time, I discovered that there were wild variables within electronic circuits, wild variables. Even the best built transformers, the induction across the coils, even if the precise length of wire was the same, the input voltage was from the same source. in the same control system with the same distance between the two coils to a micron apart, that you would still get variables across, and sometimes quite dramatic variables on the outputs across each secondary coil of the transformer. There is no hard stability outside the digital world, and this is why the elites and the psychopaths at the top are obsessed with digital. They want to be able to. They want us to move everything to digital, even how we perceive ourselves. All the New Age is saying we're a digital DNA computer. We're on your fucking ass. We're an analog. We're an analog radio broadcasting and receiving system. There's nothing digital about us. Only New Agers say that. But they want to make us think that way, and they approach genetics the same way. They treat our genetic material as the gates on a integrated circuit, on off binary code. We're not binary. We're analog. These are not finite switches. The variables, all you have to do is put 10 people in the room, look at their faces, body shape, height, hair color, and everything else without them opening their mouths or telling you where they're from. You can tell so much because the variables are extreme, even amongst humans. And these variables also apply to not only the universe, and it's the variables that actually form creation, but also to the Earth. There are areas around the Earth where the Earth's magnetic field has dropped significantly, and that's happened over all the time. They're almost like holes. They're almost like holes in the Earth's magnetic field. And scientists and even the military are very, very interested in these places. Very interested. And at the same time, DARPA are developing everything to shut off the compassion in soldiers, to make them robot killers, to creating virtual realities that don't exist outside people's heads, where they see aliens and so forth. This may be also the reason why they're encouraging ayahuasca. They want people to be not aware that reality is falling apart around us due to this possible flip in the Earth's geomagnetic field. So you get everyone on the jungle juice. It's all a matrix, it's all fake, and all. You push all these ideas. It's a false reality. And that's true. But at the same time, too, the reality you're in is very useful when you have it kind of fixed. There's nothing. You see, I see the creation of the reality inside us, our own personal artwork. And I think that's a really good thing, because when people say, oh, it's all an illusion, well, a painting is an illusion, a drawing is an illusion, a house is an illusion, but it still stops people from freezing to death in the winter. So our illusion is still important. It's not that it's not important, no, it's just an illusion. It's not, it's a very useful illusion. And if we lose that, it has two effects. One, we start looking at different forms of creativity. And two, we have them not able to control us as effectively, because the old Platonic, shall we say, methods of control are gone. They're gone. Everything becomes a series of Socratic responses. And that's, to me, is as liberating as it is frightening. We can see people talk about the Great Awakening, and when I say there's a Great Awakening, but there's also a Great Second Sleeping. But anyway, either states affect a flux of change. They're indicative of a social change that happened through the internet. And these things don't happen unless there is an externalizing factor which either triggers or impacts upon it. And if this show is to stand for anything, and its listeners are to stand for anything, it's for us to become aware that if something is going down, like this. Either it's happening naturally, it's coming from space, or I wouldn't put it past the bastards in charge to be messing with the harp kind of thing, but don't jump that that's the only thing it could be. Remember, the universe is bigger than DARPA or the US military or NASA or any space agency or any science group. Don't get stuck into that. But even if they were, observation is key now. Observation without a dogmatic attachment to it. So don't start screaming, it's definitely this, that, and the other. Pay attention. Because one of the things that this pop culture and this quick fix culture done is it's kind of slaughtered our intuitions. You see groups like Roma Gypsies or Irish Travellers have phenomenal intuition. They're even the little kids. They'd fucking buy and sell you in a second. And this is because they've not been polluted as such by pop culture because of their internal. That's why they want everyone in a global family. So we've got to become, we ourselves have to become the geomagnetic Romani, the geomagnetic gypsies. That's what we have to become. And we have to pay attention. Just like our agricultural ancestors, they understood the lay of the land. We have to understand the lay of the geomagnetic landscape. And I think many people are developing an intelligence. It's certainly on my Facebook page. The majority of people who regularly I chat with and post with, they see these things developing before they do. They're aware that if something happens in the world, there needs to be a certain type of conspiracy theory will come out, like Terry Wogan was murdered, that kind of thing, because he knew about Savile. And that intelligence is the geomagnetic lay of the land. Paying attention. Paying attention. So, it's not quite the full hour, but I don't want to keep prattling on. But if you're experiencing this anxiety now, hold on. Storms always end. This could be an amazing thing. But there's also you're learning. You're learning. You're becoming better. You're getting the intuition of a tiger. You're getting an almost like an electromagnetic street smarts. At the same time, watch and observe and see what happens. Let's hope there's no earthquake coming to this part of the world. Let's hope there's it's just a passing compression of the upper atmosphere of the geomagnetic field of the earth by a cosmic impact that's temporary. And if we're having the geomagnetic flip, it's going to take 200 years anyway, and we're probably only 20 or 25 years into it. So all of us, except ones who are listening to this in the future, won't be around to experience the flip unless it happens much quicker. And the Lachamp lava readings around the Black Sea and other areas are wrong. So thank you for listening, and feck 'em if they can't take a joke.